presentation. This is going to be fun. Like I said, a lot of us filled out this survey, and so I'm excited to hear the results. This is a team that's going to be presenting, so I'm going to be introducing all three folks. Dr. Chelsea LeNoble is an assistant professor for the Industrial Organizational Psychology program, here on out known as IO, at the University of Central Florida, and leads the Resilience to Disruption at the Work Nexus Lab, which focuses on addressing issues at the intersection of work and societal resilience. Her work to develop theory and interventions designed to advance human resilience in work and non-work domains of life has been funded by the National Science Foundation, National Institute of Occupational Safety and Health, Office of Naval Research, Natural Hazard Center, and Duke Energy Foundation. That's a lot of funding. Dr. LeNoble is joined by her graduate research assistants, Casey Oberdick and Zachary Carr, who are second-year master students in IO psychology at UCF and integral members of that very complicated lab.
You got R2 Dawn.
R2 Dawn Lab. Zachary is the R2 Dawn Lab manager and focuses on applied research exploring team resilience factors. Casey is the student lead for the prescribed fire study and is completing a master's thesis examining the role of work history on bridge employment intentions for older workers. You guys have a lot going on.
For a couple things.
Welcome.
Thank you. So we did a full screen one. Thank you. Cool. Okay. Yeah. Awesome. All right. So thank you all for having us. We're really excited to be here today and talk about this research study that we've put a lot of time into. A lot of you have put a lot of time into. So yeah, we'll go ahead and get started. Okay, so just to kind of summarize who we are here that are going to be presenting or sort of like leading those interactive components today. I'm Chelsea, and then we also have Casey and Zach. And so we are going to have two interactive components of the presentation, and this is just sort of a heads up slide. So you could load if you're going to be interested in participating in that interactive piece. You can sort of load up your phone device. Gotcha, thanks. And there'll be another slide that shows this again, but I just wanted to get that started for us so that when it comes up, everybody is ready. If it asks you something about registering, there should be a little option that says skip, so you don't have to do any of that, but either way, we'll get to that in a couple of minutes. All right. So what we'll be doing today, I'm going to go over some of the aspects of the research study, tell you some of the findings of the things that we're identifying as pretty interesting in terms of the experiences of all of you in prescribed fire. Then we're going to have a breakout where we'll go through some different interactive workshop options. So there'll be 3 options, and essentially we pre-recorded presentations for the virtual attendees. Not sure exactly where the YouTube links need to be sent or anything like that. Okay, they're in the chat already. Great. So that'll be for about 40 minutes. And then I'm really interested to have us all sort of come back after that, open discussion, ask us any questions, really excited to learn from you all and see, are the things we're finding really matching up to what your experience is. So I wanted to start before we get into all of the research and just a moment of gratitude. Really, really thank you for making experiences like these possible by helping to keep our ecosystems healthy. These are just some, pictures of things that I've gone on hikes for or been able to see that might not have otherwise been possible without you all. So I just really appreciate that. So who are we and what are we doing here? You know, we came in the door with my students a little bit earlier and kind of had some looks like, what are you guys here for? We're here for the fire meeting. Are you sure? Yeah, no, we definitely look like people who've maybe never seen fire a day in our lives, but what are we good at? So we are experts in this really long title, many syllables thing, industrial organizational psychology. So essentially, another way to think of it is psychology of the workplace. It's a growing field. We basically take concepts, theories from the world of psychology, and we apply them to individuals at work, teams, organizations, and sort of organizations working together. So there's some different topics included here. We have a pretty interesting social media account within our field, IO Psych Memes. So these are some of the ones I like on there that kind of give you a little bit more of a humorous sense of who we are and what we do. So why would IO psychologists be interested in fire? I'm going to take you through the story of this a little bit. A little bit more information about me. In my non-work time, I'm also a member of my local chapter of the Florida Native Plant Society, and I have volunteered with different restoration or plant rescue projects. And it was close to a year ago when I first met Mike Jenkins with Florida Forest Service, and he had us helping out at Little Big Econ State Forest to clear some of the oaks so that the Garbaria population there could get more sunlight. And so when I was out there in the field, I was kind of asking him questions. So, you know, I'd been just a new member of the Native Plant Society. I didn't really know much about anything, but all these people were saying how important fire is. And so I was kind of asking him, I was like, oh, how does it work? What is the training like? Basically, my IO psychology cap was on. And he was telling me these really interesting things. So essentially, I started to get more curious. Like, is there something related to what you all do that our expertise could help with? And I also myself, you know, like to go on hikes. I've, you know, born and raised in Florida, and all my degrees are from Florida. And so I was at Seminole State Forest with my husband and our dog right after a burn had taken place. And so we were walking through, and it was just honestly the coolest thing. Like, it's really, this interest is growing and just understanding how this works. My husband's best friend is the social media person for Lyonia Preserve with the Lyonia Environmental Center. And so, like, scrub jays are one of my favorite things ever. So, you know, knowing that scrub jays, you know, really depend on fire for those scrub environments, all of this is sort of just building up, ideas are coming together. And then I attended in Seminole County, the Natural Lands Program did a public outreach day where I was able to sign up just to learn more, you know, went in to see a presentation inside. And then we were able to go outside. So there's Allegra buyers on the screen there, but essentially they basically did a demo in front of us. And so that was really when I was starting to pay attention to things that we do in IO psychology related to teamwork, coordination, communication, and then also I'm also interested in occupational health, so stress and well-being at work. So these are the types of things that have brought me toward the idea of this study. So what did we want to do? Well, as many presenters before me have already said, Florida is renowned in its prescribed burning programs. And so we wanted to be able to understand a little bit more about that from two perspectives. One, I study resilience, and so it really helps me to be able to talk to people who are in resilient teams so I can better understand what this looks like, but also to kind of tease apart what makes you all so successful and resilient despite the many challenges and complexities that you face in what you do every single day. So when I say resilience, some of the questions are, well, what even are you talking about? What is this concept? So I wanted to kind of, you know, provide this definition so we're all on the same page, a process that through which we are able to kind of use these promoting factors or resources to address some source of adversity in a way that allows us to actually have a desirable outcome, kind of relative to whatever that adversity or that stressor was. So there's kind of three main components. First is the idea of those protective factors. So these can be like personality traits, it can be a mindset, It could also be resources that you have, even time, anything that you could use in your your resilience toolkit that you could pull out at any time to be able to help you address some situation. And then once that adversity strikes, the use of those protective factors is what we call the enactment of resilience, or essentially that's the piece of it that's like, what do you actually do when something is stressful? And then finally, what are the outcomes we're interested in? So this is really, really context specific, where when we talk about resilience, we have to understand, well, in what situation are we referring to? What are the things that you want to be high or sustained despite adversity? This could be things like your well-being, it could be your focus and concentration, and it could also be performance. So when we think about kind of the title of this presentation, or why do we think that IO psychology could potentially learn more through studying prescribed fire? One of the things is there's different levels of analysis. So you think of an individual person who might work within a team, and that there are maybe multiple teams who work together. So that's that concept of a multi-team system, is really just a team of teams who work together to try and achieve some sort of higher order goal. And this is where the complexity comes in, right? Where you have to sort of know who to call when there's a really great question earlier about what jurisdiction, and when smoke is being put on a road, kind of where do we go? All of those are questions related to communication and coordination. And those are the kinds of things that we're interested in studying. So what did we do? We started with a pre-interview survey to just kind of understand some of the background experiences of different prescribed burners. And then we've been doing interviews and focus groups. We've completed our data collection, have started doing our main analyses and some more advanced analyses. And so that looks like both qualitative and quantitative approaches. I have some, hidden slides at the end of the presentation for if anyone is kind of like a stats nerd and wants to see more of that. But essentially, we're doing these interviews kind of over time, starting in July. And we had about, I want to say 85 to 88 people complete those pre-interview surveys. And then we interviewed about 60 people and have done around maybe 5 or so focus groups with another 2 to 5 people in them. So a little bit more about all the people that we spoke to. So some just general breakdowns of who we talked to and what their experiences were. Different organization types of the folks that we spoke to, and some more information about kind of what is their involvement in management of natural lands using fire. So what did we find? All right, this is where we're going to test out that interactive piece and see if the integration works in the PowerPoint. So if you want to pull that back up, if you're able to load that up on your phone, or if you're like, I don't know about that, but all right, I've heard a slide or two. This isn't too boring. I guess I'll try this time. You can go ahead and pull that up. So you should be able to see the poll now, but essentially we asked everyone, what are the top challenges that you experience in terms of the things that make it harder for you to burn? So the question for you all is, what do you think those top 3 challenges were that folks mentioned in our study? Is this working okay? So give me a thumbs up that you're able to see. Okay, great. I appreciate it.
For me, yes.
Thanks. Yeah, so you should be able to see it on your device. I'm seeing responses coming in. That is fantastic. But yeah, I'm curious if you can guess what the top 3 challenges are that you all mentioned in this interview. If any of you know Mike Jenkins, he talks about how he has his flip phone. So that's why I made sure to include the text option if you don't have a smartphone. All right, I'm seeing those responses come in a little slower now. So I think we'll go ahead and I think everyone's had a chance to guess. Let's see if it'll let me go to the next slide. All right, so these are the responses that you all said. And it should also show on your device at this point. So what was the right answer? There we go. Okay, so now you should see green checks next to the answers. Oh, that went real fast. Okay, here. Next to, I guess I can't scroll, it'll get angry, but next to the ones that were actually top 3, and then next slide I actually have all of the top ones. So we have a lot of people who did guess the correct ones. Here were the top challenges that folks mentioned. The number one being sort of just staff, general availability of folks to come and help on the day of the burn. And then a lot of other things that I think you all will say, yep, duh, of course. Weather and smoke. Just, curious if any of these things were a little surprising to you or anything like that. We can talk about that more in the workshop component.
Can everybody in the back read this? You good? Okay, cool.
I appreciate that. All right. So another thing that we asked was when some of those challenges are happening, what sort of thoughts or emotions are you experiencing? And so I guess, you might imagine if you ask someone in fire, like, what are your thoughts and feelings? Like how that might, be responded to. So yeah, there's a, a fun quote that I'll show you in terms of, what you're probably all thinking. But I do want to share what the answers are to this, because I think one thing that's interesting to see is how many of you are actually having a similar experience, even if you might not necessarily realize it at the time or think that that's something that applies to you. Noticing that others also share that can be like, oh, actually, maybe I am feeling some of that. All right. So the top thoughts, kind of just first and foremost, like focusing on what you can actually do to solve the problem, like what you can do to adapt. Another really common one was making sure that you are keeping the goals in mind. So it's like, no matter what's happening, just focus on what we are here to achieve. And so on and so forth. These are the top things, like when a challenge is happening, what we are thinking. And then here's the emotions part. And so even though you're thinking like, don't ask me about my feelings, I'm here to burn stuff. Actually, there's a lot of different feelings that, emotions are information. I consider it as emotions are data. They're telling us how we're responding to our environment. And so everyone has them. If you think you don't, maybe the next step would be a little bit more course in self-awareness. I don't know. But essentially, almost everyone we talk to, even if they didn't necessarily label it as an emotion initially, like that's what we're picking up on here. So it is so normal to feel stress when something is not going as planned. That is a very normal thing that everyone feels. But also a lot of people are just like, I love it. It's so much fun. I love to do this. I love the kind of that feeling of satisfaction after we solve one of those challenges. Yeah, we might be frustrated, but like once we overcome that, like that is the coolest experience. So yeah, emotions are things that happen even in fire. Okay, so some of the quotes. I like to share some of these because they help to kind of exemplify like what it is that we're finding. There's always a series of unknowns. The weather is different than what you expected. Working with a new crew adds a greater deal of uncertainty. And so for me, there's an issue of fear because fire can be an unpredictable thing. People can be an unpredictable thing. So you've got unpredictability squared. Keep calm, keep processing. Stuff comes in from left field, but everything's got to get to home plate. So you follow everything into the decision-making process and do that. And you have to stay relaxed. And then my favorite, emotions don't have a place on the fire line. All right, that's fair. So one of the cool findings that we also identified, we did some of those mixed method analyses. We were able to kind of do some regression, so like correlation of different variables, and we found a significant result where the years of experience that you have in prescribed fire significantly predicts how stressful or emotionally demanding that you feel prescribed fire is compared to other duties and responsibilities. And so when we kind of plug the regression equation in with the different years of experience, we see this really interesting pattern happen where the longer that you've been in prescribed fire, the less that you feel like your actual prescribed fire duties are extremely stressful or emotionally demanding compared to any of the other stuff that you've got on your plate. So yeah, like I was pretty shocked to see this, 50% plus decrease in that sense of stress and emotional demands for folks who have been in it, 30 years compared to folks who are brand new. All right, and so then when we overcome those challenges, some more fun example quotes. If I got new guys that are just crushing it, that makes me super stinking happy. I like to see people win. And they get out there and then come in and, covered with smoke all over their face, and they are beaming with a smile. Man, it's freaking awesome. You leave and you're like, got it, we got them. Afterwards, I love watching the habitats flourish and thrive. I'm watching wildlife interact with the fire, and it's so mesmerizing. I look at those little things and think, okay, I might be hot, tired, and frustrated, but wow, look how that kestrel is behaving right now with the insects flying out or the gopher tortoises doing their thing, going underground. I feel very lucky to be in this profession. So what do we find in terms of like, what are the things driving some of the resilience here? We got another one of these polls. Fingers crossed it works again. Here we go. Oh, okay, I can go back. No worries, I got you. All right. Nope, not ready. Okay. No, that's good. Like, give me the, oh no, like, give me that, because then I know to go back. Okay. One more time, trying again. Okay. So we asked everyone, what do you like the most? What's the one thing that you like best about being part of Prescribed Fire? So what do you all think were the top 3 responses? Is it not working? Oh yeah, last time I tried to scroll, it like jumped 3 slides, so I know, I'm sorry. There should be like 6-ish maybe options on there. But I'll show you all of them in a sec, don't worry. What do you all like most about being part of Prescribed Fire?
Yeah, honestly, making a lot of fun, is that all?
We're still getting a few coming in, so another minute. All right, our responses are slowing down, so we'll go ahead and, oh, a few more trickling in. All right, gonna go ahead and hit the next slide. Yeah. All right, so this is what you all are saying. Again, sorry I'm not able to scroll down, but you can see at least some of the results here. And what is the right answer? Okay, so now the ones with the green check are the top three, but don't worry, I will show you the full list on the very next slide. Okay, so here are the results. The number one thing, what we kind of the IO psychology level for it might be task importance. So essentially the fact that what you are doing is meaningful work, that you are having an impact, that you can actually see that, and that you're part of something that is sort of bigger than yourself, or you're able to contribute to something that, you know, is meaningful and impactful to you. The second one being observing the ecosystem effects, and honestly that co-occurred a lot of the time with that. So it's not just that like you have the impact, but also that you're able to observe the changes in the environment that you're impacting directly. And then I really love to see the third one that so many folks also mentioned that, you know, the top thing for them was working with all of their team members, all, you know, their fire crew, or just anyone else within the community of prescribed fire, that kind of being able to solve some of those challenges together, kind of overcome some of those hurdles was really, really important. And that relates to the next one. So like pulling things off that seemed like they would have been impossible, facing that complexity together. And then of course, the very next one that I absolutely love, just the fire itself. Like their favorite thing is they just want to watch stuff burn. That is awesome. I'm here for it, you know? So yeah, that's, to me, that's kind of really an important thing, is to understand, like, what do you guys love about this? That is a huge source of your resilience. All of these things are sources of resilience when things might be frustrating or difficult or challenging.
Can I just ask a question?
Yeah.
So was this survey like just name your one top one, or was it you get options?
So these are from the interviews, so we kind of like coded through, but essentially we would ask, you know, what's the one thing you love the most? And not always, you know, we didn't cut you off after you maybe said one or two things, but yeah, it could be whatever anyone had in mind at the time. All right. So some more example quotes about what everyone likes the most. I love the community. I love the people. I love being out in the area that you can work with other people. You accomplish a task and it just creates, I don't know, like community and fellowship with people. It's a lot of fun doing that together. It kind of comes back to that ecological part of it, you know, when you see some of the areas that are well burned and you have that park-like savanna woodland at sunrise, knowing that this used to be super widespread and now it is increasingly rare, it just gives you that sense of we're doing something right here. A couple more. So this is a fun one. We were sitting in the kitchen one day and my mom said, "What do you guys want to be, or what do you want to do when you grow up?" And my friend didn't even think about it. He just answered immediately. He said, "I'm going to be a very successful attorney." And he is a very successful attorney. And I said, "I want to ride my horse and light fires." And so that's what I get to do. I appreciate getting to do what I have always wanted to do. This might sound familiar for someone, I don't know. Yeah. If we're in this job, it's because we grew up in the forest, where we grew up utilizing the resources of our state. So our mindset is already outside. I'm constantly trying to look out my window because that's where my heart is. That's where my soul is. That's where my mind is. In the work that I do is in the field. So central topics of all of this stuff that we're sort of finding from our interviews. One of the more advanced analyses that we did was called structured topic modeling. It's actually a form of machine learning. natural language processing, fancy stats terms. But essentially what it means is that we're able to use just the computer to kind of telling the computer, go look for stuff in the interviews and tell us what you find. And it's able to help us look for underlying themes that maybe we had identified by kind of manually coding stuff, but maybe we hadn't. And so what this shows you is there's different themes, and we sort of label those, and it shows you the probability of the words in that bar graph occurring within that theme. So essentially the higher, the higher the score, the higher the probability that that word occurs in that topic. And essentially it means that the words in the list for each bar graph represent that topic. So the biggest overarching topics were this kind of idea of weather and climate change, the wildland-urban interface, the health of the ecosystem, some sorts of experiences of job stress or job challenges, teaching and mentorship, problem solving, teamwork, kind of resilience, or in the sense of like, what are we doing to overcome this stuff, and public outreach. So a lot of things that you might think, oh yeah, of course, these are the things that we deal with, absolutely. And so, yeah, that's another, another moment I can just say, like, we are not the experts at fire at all, but what we really appreciate is the opportunity to help kind of connect you to some of these concepts that you all are bringing up. And because you all are the experts and probably have had a lot of successes in some of the areas that other people might be struggling with, kind of facilitating a conversation around like, what are those things that you've done really well, and how can we help kind of share that so that everyone can have be able to burn more the way they want. So the other statistic here was frequency and exclusivity. So it basically looks at how frequent does a word appear within a particular topic, and how exclusive is it for, that word really only appears in one topic, but it appears a lot. So essentially a higher score here helps to have us understand like really what are the words or themes that are very unique to that topic and not really necessarily as common in the other ones. So these are just some words that appear within those interview responses for each of those topics. All right, so 3 categories of major themes. The first being resilient mindsets. So a lot of the things that we were hearing in terms of what do we actually do when we face a challenge is that, you think about it in a certain way, you make sure that you are feeling calm and focused on what your goals are, and then you move forward in sort of problem solving, figuring out what you should do. The second one being that there's a lot of support from either your team or maybe a mentor for kind of facing those challenges together, knowing that, if you have others that you can rely on or talk to, you're really not alone, so you can handle it. Also just the sense that, when challenges come up, a lot of folks said, well, I trust in my training, I trust in my team, I trust in the experience I have. And then also from the psychology side of things, we know that when you focus on the things that you like about your job or things that you're grateful for about a particular experience, we call that savoring. And the more that you sort of like savor the good stuff, that actually helps to increase your mood and make you more physiologically resilient to stress. So what are the resilient strategies being used? Essentially, a lot of the themes that were coming up was in the sense that there's a feeling of stress when something feels sort of uncertain or uncontrollable. So like, there's new folks I haven't worked with on the crew today. I really am not sure what they're going to do. I don't know them as well as I know people have already been burning with. That's the appearance of uncertainty. So when you have someone that you work with a lot and you trust them, that means that you can rely on them and you can expect certain behaviors to occur. They communicate a certain way. So the ways that you all are finding to reduce your uncertainty and kind of control what you can, that's a really strong resilient strategy, as well as kind of adapting, finding ways to problem solve and share resources for the things that you can't control, which is like most of fire, but at least with the people stuff, there's some ability to reduce our uncertainty. And so essentially one of our big questions was, what is it that makes someone a resilient leader, a resilient land manager or burn boss or a resilient team? And so these are kind of the themes that came up with there, that resilient leaders and teams, they emphasize mentorship, They find ways to sustain crew morale and motivation, and they build and leverage their informal both resource sharing and support networks to help them overcome the challenges or the limitations of whatever kind of constraints they're facing. So what all do we take away from this? A couple things. So one is that your all jobs are getting a lot more complex. There's an increase in the demands that you have on you. There's a really common theme in terms of, what are the emotions you're feeling? Well, stress, I'm checking on this, I'm making sure that this is happening. So it's that sense of like pressure and responsibility that you have a lot you have to pay attention to, and that sort of sustained vigilance, that is a stressful experience. It takes a lot of like mental energy to do that. And so, having different staffing constraints where you need more people, but also like you like to work with people that or you've worked with a long time. So that sort of makes it a challenge to find people that you can bring on and still have that same sort of effective, resilient teamwork happening. So one other kind of big picture thing, I guess my little GIF isn't working here, but basically it was a time lapse of like the Miami area and development, where with the changing landscape, the wildland urban interface and things like that, one of the biggest implications, like the conclusions that we're having from this study is that, it kind of makes sense that you all kind of need that dedicated workforce infrastructure, meaning, funding, education and training pipeline that supports people. When I kind of talk to some people in IO psychology about our work with prescribed fires, like, a lot of times you hear someone saying like, oh, when I grow up, I want to be a firefighter. But like, do we have people that say, oh, when I grow up, I want to be a prescribed fire person? Or, other than, like wanting to ride your horse and burn stuff. But so like, what would it take to create that? Knowing that you have this kind of job complexity and there are going to be increasing constraints, the question about, we have so many more roads than we did 20 years ago, and like what that does for your ability to burn. Our conclusion is, because of how important what you all do is for societal resilience, the powers that be need to support that better. And that's exactly what we are going to be writing into our manuscripts and things like that. And then just the kind of final quote to bring that home. The more training opportunities you have to gain experience, the more that you do that lowers the risk. This is high risk. You can't hide it. This is a high risk job. So to mitigate that, you have to be supported to get training and opportunities. And that is 100% what we have been finding in this study. Okay, so that's all the researchy stuff. Next, we are going to get into the workshop piece, where essentially we have 3 different options for you all. And the way I've sort of envisioned this is that maybe we have like one group on one side, and then because majority of people are more so on this side, we can like split up to like the front of the room, back of the room, and my co-facilitators will come help with that. But how do you choose which one to be part of? Well, there are options. So one is going to be Casey, and she's going to be talking about how to kind of like leveraging mentorship. So this is helpful for those of you who are engaging in mentoring relationships, looking to learn more about how to mentor, and just kind of generally improve relations with your crew members. These are the things that we expect you'll be able to learn in that option. The second one is with Zach, and it's on enhancing team motivation. So this is helpful for folks who are interested in ways to attract and retain talent and enhance their own leadership style, because motivating others is a great leadership strength. And finally, I'll be talking about developing team resilience. So this is helpful for those of you who can admit or have admitted that maybe you felt emotions. And so those of you who might have experienced stress or burnout are interested in sort of optimizing the sustainability of a team that's already really strong. You want to make sure that that stays the case, or kind of seeking ways to strengthen those interagency collaborations, knowing that that also adds complexity. All right, so basically logistics being, if everyone's cool with kind of like getting up, moving around to whichever I'm thinking like group 1 can be over here. And then group 2 can be in the front on this side. And then group 3 can be more so the back half on that side. And we'll just kind of take a minute to like let everyone scooch around. Yes, please.
Think of it as a sponsored exercise.
It's a stretch break. All right, I hope everyone was able to have some interesting discussion, learn something new, think about something in a new or different way. I just wanted to sort of open anything up to questions, discussion. Basically, let's see. Also thanking all the folks that were part of the study and who gave us their time, attention, and advice. And those are all the slides we have, but basically just sort of generally opening any questions that anyone might have, or anything that like, oh, I want to share this. This is an experience I had that I think would be helpful for others. However we want to do it, just let me know if you have anything you want to talk about.
Are these findings going to be like available online, like on a website or something?
Great question. So are the findings going to be available online, or sort of how's that going to work? We are going to be developing a technical report of the findings. Actually, Stephen is going to be in charge of getting that pulled together. So we have over at the table there, we have a clipboard for anyone who's interested in getting a copy of that. You can leave your email. We'll also probably share it with the different sort of like prescribed fire newsletters and things like that. So it'll definitely be out there, but if you want to make sure that you directly got one, you can drop your email off over with us there.
Thank you.
Yeah.
This might be like a little off topic, but I assume you do this a lot. How do we compare, we as a fire community compare with some other groups that you've studied, maybe law enforcement or whatever?
That's a great question. So how do kind of you all as fire folks compare to other sort of populations or employee groups that we've studied? So I would say that in terms of the challenges you face, staffing is something that we also see in kind of one big area, healthcare, that I've worked in a lot. That essentially, always could use more people and pay them more. Like that's always going to be a challenge there. So that's something that we obviously heard again here too. I'd say one thing that's unique about prescribed fire community is that you all are really, really good at developing and leveraging sort of these informal networks. Basically throughout the interviews, when we'd ask, so, well, okay, how did you kind of address that challenge? Well, oh, I called up this person and, then I was able to, have some folks come over to help us burn, and then we go and help them burn. And so I think that's something unique to this profession, is that really strong kind of relationships that you all build, not just within your own group or your own agency, but sort of across agencies to make that easier. And I would say, like, I don't see that as often in other groups. I think that part of that is sort of the one side about like the workforce infrastructure, that because of, not necessarily having like, oh, people go to school and get a degree called prescribed fire compared to like the degree of nursing or something like that, that some of those pieces already exist for them. And so you all are creating that yourselves. So I think that's a pretty cool, unique aspect.
Okay, yeah. One more question. Who has this? Anyone?
Well, that is time. Thank you so much.